This is exactly the reason why so many people are moving away from what has been the mainstream media and looking for alternative news sources in new media and in podcasts and in other areas, because it has become so blatant and overt. You know, I'll give you one example. The first day that I announced my candidacy, that I was running for president back in, was it early 2019, NBC decided to run a news story that said, hey, you know, basically Russia and Putin are supporting Tulsi's campaign that just began that very minute. It was what would become the beginning of what has now become a long trend of anyone who doesn't kind of go along with whatever the mainstream narrative is immediately given any one of a number of names, one of which is Russian asset or white supremacist or sexist or bigot or racist or fill in the blank. But it's something that's unfortunately become so prevalent across the board. And again, I think a lot of people are starting to see how these headlines are very carefully crafted. And frankly, the contrast of my candidacy and the candidacy of one of the other veterans who ran for president in 2020, of Pete Buttigieg. Someone did actually a side-by-side comparison of the media coverage and the headlines of, I think, the first weeks of our respective campaigns. And the coverage was vastly different, predominantly negative on my part and predominantly fluff pieces on his part, which just goes to, you know, a lot of people talk about, oh, you know, there's so much outside influence on our elections and which country is trying to influence our elections in one direction or another. Let's just start with looking at the outsized influence that the corporate for-profit entertainment media has on our elections, because they're choosing who they're going to cover, how they're going to cover them, and therefore what perceptions they're creating in voters' minds across the country. I'll give one other quick example on this. There was a forum that was held, a presidential campaign forum, that was focused on women. It was called She the People. And as one of the women who was running for president at the time, I went and participated in this forum. Washington Post covered it the next day. I wasn't mentioned anywhere in the article. Every other woman that was running for president was there and was mentioned in the article. And so my press secretary called and said, hey, Tulsi was there. I know you saw her. She spoke. And they said, oh, no, we didn't want to include her in the article. Like, that's not, she was there, though. He's like, we have no obligation to tell people that she was there. And that was the reason that we were given. So the very clear agenda that's being driven by those in the corporate media, working with the political powers that be, the power elite on both sides of the aisle, this is what is corroding our democracy and making it so that as voters, when we go and say, hey, here are the choices that we have, no, those are the choices that they want you to have.